If you were in a competition, if you were in a game, say a big football game, and you were getting ready to play it on Saturday, would you call the other team up on the Monday before and say, hey, I just wanted to give you our playbook so you weren't surprised this Saturday when we show up? Of course you wouldn't. You would have a playbook that you would keep close to your vest and not let anybody know what's in there except for you. Well, the same thing is true in life, and that's what we're talking about. The playbook for your life. We started last week, we're continuing this week, and when we started, I talked about number one, you must have a defined image and never go out of character. I'm a strong believer in a defined product. You've got to decide who you are, what image you want to project, what horse you want to ride in this life. And once you decide what it is, it's got to be authentic and you've got to stay in character. You never go out of character. Second, I talked about the fact that that character, who you choose to be, must be unique because you must create a perception of uniqueness. If you're like everybody else, if you're a face in the crowd, then you just become interchangeable, right? I mean, I can take you, take somebody else, you're all alike. What difference does it make? You have to not just be unique, you have to create a perception of uniqueness. And third, I said you must play big, not just long. A lot of people think, boy, oh boy, when I get a chance to talk, when I get a chance to be in front of my work group or my friends or whatever, I've got to talk for a long, long time. I am a strong opponent of that. You need to play big, not long. When you finally speak, say something that matters. Don't get lost in a sea of minutia. So that's in Living by Design number 5. I go into a lot of detail because I don't want this to just be a philosophy. I want this to be the way you go about living your life. If you go through the things I'm talking about last week, this week, next week, and somebody that knows you can't look at you and say, wow, something's different here. This person has shifted gears. They've raised their game. Then I didn't do my job or you didn't pay attention, one or the other. So I want to really give you something that you can do. So if you've got questions after hearing Living by Design 5 or after hearing today Living by Design 6, then I want you to let me know. Go on to the website for fill in the blanks and put your questions down. If something needs more clarification, you disagree with something, whatever, tell me and I will visit that next week. I want to know. Let's move on to number 4. There are 16 of these, by the way. I'm giving you a thorough playbook here. And when I say playbook, by the way, what I've done is I have made a study since I was 12 years old, actually, of why people that win, win. Why people who are winners are winners. Because let's face it, all men are created equal. Yeah, that's true. That's meant in the sense of our worth and value as human beings. But not everybody performs at an equal level. We know that. Look in the NBA. Look in track and field, look in the laboratory, wherever you look, some men and women perform at a higher level than other people. So I've always been interested in why some people are winners, some people are just mediocre, and some people are just flat out losers. And there are a lot of reasons that people wind up on the short end of the stick. But there are some very specific reasons that people are winners. And think about this. I thought about it the other day because I had a high school reunion. At our high school, the big parking lot where everybody left their cars was at the end of the gym. It was stuck on the end of the school. And that was where we had all of our assemblies. That's where we had all of our pep rallies. That's where everything that took place took place. And that's where we had our graduation. There was a big stage at one end. And when it was all over, there were like 4 sets of double doors at one end of that gym. And I had this vision in my mind, this image of what happened, because when it was all over and everybody graduated that was going to graduate, we all came pouring out those double doors into the parking lot. So we had all been there for several years together. We all came pouring out those 4 sets of double doors into the world and into life. And then here we came back together decades later. And it was really interesting to see where people had wound up after all that time. It was just really intriguing. Some people were home run hitters, man, and it wasn't necessarily who you thought was going to be. Some people were just barely getting by. A lot of people weren't even alive, but those that were all up and down the bell curve, meaning that the vast majority were just kind of living average lives in average America, doing average jobs for average income, average marriages, average number of divorces, average number of kids, 2.2 kids, a barking dog, a picket fence. And then there was this group that were overachievers. They were the ones that were out there running the world. But we all came out those doors with the same opportunities in terms of educational background. We all had the same information, but we didn't have the same environment that we were going into. Some had better opportunities than others. Some had a road paved in front of them. Some it was an uphill battle. But we certainly wound up in different places. And I have spent my life studying why those that wound up winners after all those years wound up ahead, and those that wound up to be losers came in at the end of the pack. Ask yourself that about you. Maybe you've been out of high school 3 or 4 years. Maybe you've been out 30 years. Maybe you've been out 20, whatever. Where are you in your pack? Are you doing pretty well? Are you kind of bringing up the rear? Are you average Joe or Joan right in the big middle? And do you want to know how to be one of those that's leading the pack? And that's why I'm spending this time on this Fill in the Blanks podcast. I'm wanting to fill in the blanks about why winners win and losers lose. Because if I gave you a pen and a pad, I'm guessing you couldn't fill in all those blanks because you probably haven't spent the last 40 years studying it, and I have. I probably couldn't fill in the blanks in what makes your job, but I can fill it in what makes my job, and this is what it is. I told you at the beginning of this that you weren't going to have to be a narcissist and you weren't going to have to cheat. But I also said this wasn't for the squeamish. Because frankly, those that wind up being winners, those that get ahead in this world, they just do some things losers don't want to do. And it's easier not to do some of the things I'm going to tell you to do. And you may think, oh, that doesn't seem like the Christian thing to do. That doesn't seem like the polite thing to do. Well, you'll have to make up your own mind about that. But this is a playbook that requires your being aggressive. Because if you want to win, you're going to have to be aggressive.